Are you struggling with positioning on King's Row? Do you sometimes feel like the enemy team absolutely rolls you because your tank has no idea where to stand? Well, if that's you, look no further. Today we're going to be going over all of the positions and places you should be standing as a tank player on King's Row. So first, let's go over what good positioning is and how we can effectively use that for us. Good positioning involves you standing in a strong space, optimizing your teammates' sightlines while deterring the enemy sightlines from gaining any kind of value. Good positioning as a tank also promotes better positioning for your teammates because wherever you stand will influence their positioning as well. Because there are a lot more brawl tanks than dive tanks, this positioning guide is going to be a high recommendation and mainly for the brawl tanks, assuming that we don't have any high mobility abilities to get us into the backline of the enemy team. Let's start with defense first. So for defense on first point King's Row, you're going to want to be standing near the statue area. The reason you're going to be standing near the statue is it's going to have great sight lines for your team. You're only allowing the enemy team to push through these two choke points versus where other tanks might stand, which could be the main choke or back by the hotel. Both of those are not great options because they cause your support team to have to move in order to get better sightlines on you, which can actually put them in a bad position, especially if a Widowmaker is eyeing them up. It also doesn't give you much option to retreat. As a main tank standing in these areas, you'll have to back off into no cover, whereas if you played statue, you could have a lot more cover to walk around. A benefit that the statue also provides is a free health pack, so should you ever get low, you will have extra healing just from that health pack that always comes up. The second point we want to be holding is this choke point right here. Most of the enemy team's heroes are not going to be getting to the high ground to get to the top window that is behind the field of view here, so they're limited to only pushing through here, or they're going to have to abandon the payload and move all the way towards the right side. Keeping it down to this short choke allows you to have amazing cover from the payload as well as the wall next to you, and should anyone poke out, they are in danger of all fire coming from your damage and support heroes. Your damage and support heroes are also safe in this fighting position because the enemy team, in order to actually get any good sightlines on them, would have to push through the choke, stepping into the tank's zone. Now, because you held the close point as a tank, you would hopefully be holding the second corner. That corner is going to allow your damage to have high ground. They can access the stairs in order to gain an off angle while you're pushing into the cart. It also allows your support lines to have a pretty safe back line in almost no danger fire because the damage heroes of the enemy team cannot extend further out and get any kind of off angle themselves. And finally, after holding those two positions, you should have one more fight happening, which is just going to be the recontest on this point. So for the recontest, you're just going to be recontesting, hopefully as a tank. The best position you're going to hold is going to be in that corner over there, right next to the payload. That's going to allow you to not only contest the payload, but you're going to have safe positioning that will not allow enemy sightlines to hit you from where you're standing. With this positioning, the enemy team will have to overextend should they want to try and eliminate you, and then you can punish them back with your abilities. This is going to also allow you to build up enough sustain, and your team actually will have a closer spawn on the recontest. Once the enemy team has capped the third point, the next best spot to hold is going to be this corner here. This corner here is a good spot to hold because it stops the enemy's positioning from getting the mega health pack over to the left. It also limits the enemy team to only these sight lines and angles, while your team has not only the mega pack but also this rotation angle too. Next place you would want to hold is this corner here. The reason you're holding this corner again is to get yourself the mega health pack to the left. It also provides sight angles from both of the spawn points for your supports to keep you alive, and the enemy team has to round this small corner over here in order to actually pressure you out, which you should be able to brawl into them pretty nicely and get some picks on them. Finally is the recontest point. The recontest, you're going to want to be sitting the front of payload because it provides the least amount of angles on you, and it also allows your supports to play closer to these cover points, healing you up a little bit more while they're in safer positions themselves. If you feel like you're learning something, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like the video. If you want to see more content of this, I'll use that to definitely make a series of this in the future, and I can go through every map on tank positioning as well as support positioning. With that being said, let's go on to attack and what the attacking tank would try to do on King's Row. So as an attacking tank on King's Row, you're really just trying to push it so your team is getting into a good, well-footed position so that you're able to expend the enemy resources more, and that's going to allow you to really get an advantage over the enemy team and make it so that they're going to have to spend resources to contest you. On attack, first point, you want to go to the right side of statue. What that's going to do, especially on inexperienced tank players, is they're going to back off into hotel. Once they back off into hotel, they're going to be using resources to try and come back from hotel to pressure you back off of the statue. If they end up doing that, they're probably not going to make it too far. So once you start realizing that they're bleeding all of those resources, you can now push on to point. Pushing on to point's going to, one, start contesting the point, so they're going to have to come to point to fight you, and two, your team's going to be well positioned so that they can eliminate anyone that's trying to do that. Your supports are going to be in a safe position because they're probably also going to be standing at statue, helping you from anyone that might flank in hotel to try and push them out. And your damage heroes will probably take high ground in the meantime while they got pushed off of point. Once you cap the point, you want to immediately push through the choke. The defensive tank wants to try and hold this choke, so instead we're going to try and push through the choke. If they ended up staggering, you want to potentially grab any staggers that may have been coming from the train station. And if we end up getting these staggers, you actually want to be holding here as a tank. It's going to allow your entire team to have someone on that cart, pushing that cart for free. It's also going to allow your team to have all of the sight lines that are offered on King's Row. Your team will have access to all of the high ground, will have access to all of the alleyways. Not only that, you'll also have access to all of the health packs on attacking point, and the enemy team will have to use resources to get through this area to even come to try and combat you. Now, we will also probably have ultimates at this point to use to stop the enemy team, and that's going to allow us to push more. Also, if there were stagger kills, the enemy team is probably trying to group up with their team, so they're definitely going to be giving all this space for free. The second best option on attack, if you cannot hold that angle, is you want to hold this angle. What this angle is going to do, it's going to do the exact same thing as the other angle, except the enemy team now has access to this small little bunker area in that green zone. What that's going to do for the enemy team is just have their supports and damage heroes be a little safer when they're contesting, but this position also gets the job done. Once you cap the third point, the next spot that you need to go instantly is going to be this corner right here. The reason you're going to be holding that corner right there is it's going to give your team access to the mega pack, also going to give your team access to high ground, and the flank route that goes all the way around the right side. The enemy team also is limited to just these sight angles when you're playing that, which is going to be quite difficult for the enemy team to actually pressure you off, and they will actually need to use this in order to do so. If you were on attack and you decided to play this angle instead, the enemy team would have the mega access, they would have both high grounds, and they would also have that flank route, so they would actually have the advantage over the entire map. Once you end up taking here, the next spot you want to go is either hold boxes and then stop the people from coming in the flank route. Holding these boxes here is going to stop anyone coming out the right side. You'll also quickly be able to turn over right and shoot anyone coming in the open area. Playing here stops the enemy team from gaining this cover. I hope this tank guide has helped you with positioning on King's Row for both attacking and defending, and I hope it helps you climb. If this video has helped you, definitely comment down below. If you have other suggestions, make sure you leave that down in the comments too.